On this episode, Luka to sign an extension, and we've got thoughts on the Hall of Fame game. This and more. Play the music. Welcome to this week's episode of the Goal Line Fade, a Dallas sports podcast, and that's exactly what we have for you today, a bunch of Dallas sports news. Brian and I are going to talk about the only football game that's happened so far, the Hall of Fame game with the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers, as well as breaking news moments before we logged on to record this pod on Monday. Luka has signed his extension officially. So this and more. Let's get to cracking. Brian, how's this week been treating you? How are you doing, my man?
It's Monday, man. So, getting back to the grind. Went and had a good weekend. Went up to Oklahoma City to catch the Foo Fighters. And I don't know if you've ever seen them before, but they always put on an amazing show. I highly, highly recommend it. Put them on your bucket list of bands to see. They're amazing. But other than that, standard stuff. How about yourself? How's your week starting out?
It was good, man. A lot of time with friends this weekend. Once again, a lot of time I spent, watching NFL Network and such. Friday night was weird. My neighborhood lost its power for, about 2.5 hours. It said originally they projected till 11. I can't complain too much. I was so fortunate when the freeze happened in Texas that we did not lose power at all. We lost internet for about 2 minutes. So I cry me a river, right? But it was awkward. So we just went with our neighbors and had some drinks in the street and just made it a night. That was it. Watched Suicide Squad this weekend. It was okay.
Yeah.
Did you watch it by chance?
I watched about 25 minutes and fell asleep.
Okay. It's fun. John Cena I think he's going to be a rock star, man. By rock star, I mean actor. I think he's going to be okay. Like he kind of stole the show a little bit. He's pretty funny. But overall, glad I watched it. It was a fun popcorn flick. I'm not waxing poetic about being phenomenal or anything like that, but I wasn't mad. The pacing was really good. It's Guardians of the Galaxy on steroids and more vulgar, basically.
That's kind of what I expect. And I to be fair, I didn't fall asleep because I absolutely hated it or was miserable. I fell asleep because I was drag ass tired from we started watching it on Sunday and we did not stay in Oklahoma City. So after the show, we drove back at night. So, the industry that you and I both work in, we start early in the morning. So I'm conditioned to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning at the latest, no matter how late I go to sleep. So I got like 3.5 hours. So I passed out in the middle, took a nap because that movie just had me sitting still for long enough to fall asleep. So
yeah. Oh, I get it completely. I took a nice nap yesterday as well. But yeah, we're into it, man. And we've got lots of cool stuff happening, man. Like we have every single team in the NFL is playing a game this weekend, including the Cowboys. I don't know. I'm going to go with the fact that the NFL teams seem to not be taking these preseason as seriously as once was. Yeah. That having a fourth game as opposed to 3 will be a minor bonus for the coaching staff, especially, and some of the youth. So that should be an advantage. Whereas the Cowboys, in my opinion, last year, and don't get me wrong, some teams like the Browns did phenomenal with a new regime, but for whatever reason, we had the wrong guys that weren't capable of adjusting to what was going on, especially on defense, what was going on. So I'm excited to see with a full off season how things kind of pan out. Hall of Fame thoughts for me, man. Micah Parsons is everywhere. I love it. He is a ball magnet, right?
Yep.
And he's just as advertised, man. The reason why I was excited about this pick as opposed to one of the cornerbacks is I think that he's a true game changer, and we'll see with Surtain. But dude, man, looking good. And the other thing that stood out to me, what's the quarterback's name? What's his name? You know who I'm talking about. Just lost my train of thought. Tall one. No.
the corner for
Not
us.
gonna. Yes, not
Oh,
gonna work here anymore.
the 96. Oh my lord! If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
It just happened to me as well.
Uh, ki- n-
Moreno.
no.
No,
Sean, no, you're
that's
thinking of no Sean Moreno, who was the running back for
yeah,
Denver.
yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, keep going. Tell me your thoughts about it, and it'll come to me.
Okay, he got burnt by Claypool once, but other than that, he looked really good. And
Yeah,
Claypool,
and that was a push off, by the way.
And Claypool's a freak too.
Yeah.
Either way, that was even with the push off. That's a great catch by Claypool, but he successfully defended on the other ones as well. So that was exciting to me. The pace of the offense looked really good, in my opinion. The schemes, the blocking, and everything else. Gilbert still doesn't really pass my eye test. I feel more confident in Gilbert than I did last season going into the Steeler game. And if he is going to be our backup, I guess I'm okay with that, right? No, Sean Wright, is that his name?
It's Wright is correct, but it's hold on. Oh, dude.
And we do a sports podcast.
I know.
Okay, that's terrible people.
Word joke.
It's fine though. But he did look good. He didn't look good,
but he did. You know what? He didn't look terrible, right?
Well, he was the 4th round pick. Everyone said it was a reach that should have gone in the 6th round. So I would say he looked good compared to what the thoughts were going to be of him playing with starters.
Well, and the truth is, he's been much better in camp than we expected at all. He's been solid, like early on in camp, especially. Nahshon, right? Nahshon. We were very close. Very close. He's been early in camp, like the first couple of days in camp, he looked terrific. Since then, he's kind of leveled out quite a bit, but he's still been considerably better than just about anybody thought. But the DB that I was impressed by was Boss Man Fat. He played very well. He played very well. It wasn't not super flashy. He didn't have some crazy pick or anything like that. Just rock solid. They didn't really throw at him much because he was sticky as hell in coverage, which is exactly what you want. So,
and CeeDee Lamb continues to have a highlight a day on the interwebs about how awesome he's doing.
Yeah, he's a freak show, man. And I know, look, we're not saying any crazy original thought here, or I'm not when I say this. It reminds me a lot of the Dez Bryant circa 2010 era, when it really started clicking hardcore for Dez. And it was that same thing where every day there was somebody talking about, holy hell, can you believe this thing that Dez did? Holy hell, can you believe this catch? Can you believe that? It's that kind of thing again, but he's a better athlete than Dez. He's faster and he's a much better route runner and he's got much better hands. So it's going to be a good year for him.
I think Zeke too. I know that we talked about this and joked about it, about how, especially tomorrow, I can already hear the slow motion, HBO Hard Knocks music that they play while Zeke's working out in slow motion on getting his body in shape for the offseason. I can already see it. Sure. This is not, I'm not falling into the hype of that, but just looking at that man, you can tell when someone is significantly trying to be in shape by their jawline. That boy is skinny. And they said 10 pounds. It's like lost 40 pounds of fat, gained 30 pounds of muscle back, some kind of nonsense like that, right? Because it's chiseled, that chin. And also what he said was his motivation for being so regimented and doing that in the offseason was he didn't say Dak's name, but he was implying that, was how hard Dak was having to work in order to get back to being himself for the season. And it's like, man, what's my excuse? I'm perfectly healthy. What am I doing? So that's good. And we know Zeke likes to party and everything else. And man, COVID hit everybody differently, being locked in their homes and everything else. So he's a young dude, man, so.
not just that, he got COVID, and
Yeah,
that,
that's true.
I don't know. We've talked about it, but I don't know if you got COVID. I got COVID, and it messed me up for a little while. And look, I am by no means a physical specimen, but I can tell you that I'm pretty close to back to normal, but there for a good solid 6 months after COVID, I couldn't mow the lawn all the way through without having to take a break. Just little stuff like that. I imagine I could very easily see it being additional weight on him.
Sure.
Being in he's going to run out of endurance faster. It seems to be the case, so I do think we're going to see a better Zeke. Plus, I think we're going to see less of Zeke, which will be a better Zeke, right? Because we're going to see Tony Pollard more, I think. And that's good.
That's the NFL. That's the NFL we're in, man.
Yeah, and the truth is, I think if Zeke has a year like he had in 2016 or 2017, where he gets 400 carries, it's just going to shorten his career, man. That's not good for anybody at all. He needs to be in that 250, 280 carry range. Tony Pollard's got to get a good 35% of the carries and, stretch this thing out. It's just better for everybody.
This is going to be the year that he's back to being a household name after the season and a half, 2 seasons of kind of not being that. This is going to be that first 2 year Zeke, that I do think we're going to get back to that. And man, this Dak Prescott thing, I know that it's under his arm is what he said.
He threw today.
Okay, good. Yes, perfect. So I think I can't remember if we talked about it on the podcast or not. I did talk about it over the weekend with a friend, but how a sports doctor I listened to on a podcast said that he feels what happened with the injury is that Dak's mechanics are different now because of the injury. Sure. So he's overcompensating when he throws. So it's just it's just stress that he's causing on a part of his body. He never has done that before. Yeah. So it's caused kind of a mild strain, mini tear, whatever that would. They're not being kind of they're not giving us all the info on it for obvious reasons. Sure. So that sounds very reasonable to me, honestly, for why they're kind of like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, I mean, first let me say that Mike McCarthy screwed this up a little bit by putting a timeline on it. If he was smart, what's causing a lot of people to freak out is that Mike McCarthy said, it's 2 or 3 days and then he'll start throwing. And then when it turned out to be longer than 2 or 3 days, everybody hits the panic button because it's your quarterback and his throwing arm, right? And he's coming off this big injury, and Mike McCarthy's tenure so far has been a bit of a shit show. So everybody freaks out. If he'd have played it smart and just said, look, it's our quarterback coming off a major injury. It's the preseason. It's Dak Prescott. We're not worried about it. We're going to give him all the time he needs to heal. I don't think people would be freaking out as much. But the fact that he was able to throw today, and from what I read, it was perfectly fine. No issues whatsoever.
Excellent.
That is very relieving. However, I did read some stuff very similar to what you're talking about, the doctor, the podcast you were listening to. And it is concerning that this may flare up or happen again if this is, if his mechanics have changed. Let me put it this way. If the mechanics have changed, changing the mechanics is what's causing this, then it's highly possible that it's going to pop up again in the season. And I really hope it's not a bigger issue then than it's been now.
Right. If they think that, they definitely, you probably feel after watching Garrett Gilbert, is he the answer, or you need to make a move then and see what happens with other quarterbacks?
I definitely would like to at least see what other options are out there. They obviously, the quarterbacks that are available now, they don't think enough of them to go make the moves to sign them. So they're probably waiting till cut down, and if somebody that Mike McCarthy or Kellen is really comfortable with or interested in is available, then they may go make a move. And if not, they'll stick with Garrett Gilbert. Personally, There's a couple guys out there I would much rather have than Garrett Gilbert. Not that I think Garrett Gilbert is terrible. I just don't think I think the Pittsburgh game that we got from him last year is the best you're going to get from him.
Right.
Like that is the tippy top tier of what you're going to get because he's just a dink and dunk game manager kind of guy. And
now there's more film on him as well because of that also.
Absolutely. All of his warts are going to be, not all of, but a lot of his warts are available and on film. And we don't have the defense to be able to handle having a quarterback who can't move the ball down the field.
Right.
We don't. And
Not
I think
right
the
now,
defense is going to
unless
be
we're about to be really, really, really surprised. We think it's going to be better because it's going to take a lot to be worse.
Yeah.
Right. But
and I have a note on that. I was thinking about it over the weekend. Right. And I'm not necessarily predicting this, but I wish I had the nuts to predict it. It would be that we would be a top 10 defense because just hear me out for a second. 2 years ago, right, we were like top 15 defense, right?
Like 12 to 15 back and forth.
Yeah. Not great. Special teams is what killed us that year for the most part, but defense was solid. Then Mike Nolan comes in, the ship catches on fire and starts to sink.
Right.
For the most part, not entirely, but a huge portion of that defense is still here. That was a 12 to 15th ranked defense 2 years ago. Only now we've added a ton of young talent to that defense with a coordinator who is going back to a scheme that's at least kind of similar. But if you ask me, he is a better coordinator than Marinelli or Chris Richard, which were the ones that were here calling it the year they were 12 to 15. It's entirely feasible that this becomes a top 10 defense just on that alone. To me, well, I'm not saying it will, but
in my opinion, for them to be that kind of defense, it's with takeaways. If they're not top 8 in takeaways, then they're not going to be that. They'll be closer to the 15 range, I think, because I do think like if you're being more aggressive for takeaways, you're going to also get burnt a little bit more. Is my opinion. So if the takeaways aren't there, I think that could bite us. Now I'm like you though. I'm higher than maybe one would be who's not plugged into what changes are kind of being made. So I can't wait to see it. And boy, they're going to get tested with the ultimate, the GOAT basically on Thursday Night Football here a month from today. A month from us recording versus Tom Brady. So I'm excited, man. And you know what, Zeke too. We talk about how ready we are for that. That Tampa Bay run defense is fucking nasty.
Yeah,
it is nasty, dude. So
it's better now than it was when they won the Super Bowl because Vita Vea is back.
Yeah,
and Vita Vea is arguably their best defensive player. And he was out for the last 8 weeks of the season, 8+ weeks of the season. They're going to be. Yeah, it's going to be nasty. Like
and remember, folks, Brian predicted a win on Thursday Night Football.
I still stand by it. I still stand by it right now. Yes, because Tom Brady's arm is finally going to fall off, maybe, or something. I don't know. I just believe.
How does he keep getting more pretty? Did you see him at the Hall of Fame on Peyton Manning's speech?
Stupid. It's
like
stupid.
That's a handsome fucking guy, man.
Yeah, dude. Yes, absolutely. It's ridiculous. It's not fair.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's doing something illegal. There's no way he's not. Some kind of something.
Well, all in all, the Hall of Fame game, I watched the entire thing. I was very invested in it. I think too, in a weird way, because I know I'm going to be seeing more of it on Hard Knocks. So I'm kind of was even paying even more attention than I would in the fourth quarter of a game like that. But fully invested. The Cowboys play the Cardinals this week. Once again, I just want to see scheme. I want to see how our youth's doing. Kyler Murray, since this first game, like I don't know how coaches are handling a first game now, because the first game they could treat as the dress rehearsal or whatever. I don't even know. Like Matt Stafford apparently is not going to play at all during the preseason. Obviously, Dak's not going to play in the preseason. We don't know. It's team by team for who's going to do what. I know one thing is the Jags will play Trevor Lawrence at some point on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to watching that. But I'm ready for the Cowboy game. It'll be a late one on Friday, but that'll be fun. That'll be fun to watch and to get some more nugget takeaways. hopefully Micah Parsons continues to just be a magnet to the ball because it looked very good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just like we talked about before, to me, everything interesting about the Hall of Fame game was on the defensive side of the ball. I learned nothing useful really about our offense. Except for maybe that Dalton Schultz is not going to give up that one job as easily as a lot of people, myself included, thought he was.
Right. He might be the guy. He might be the TE1.
I mean, he's not I think Blake Jarwin is more talented than he is, physically gifted anyway. But Dalton Schultz has a poor man's Jason Witten vibe to him. You know what I mean? He's not the fastest guy. He's not the strongest guy. He's not the biggest guy, but he just kind of finds a way to get it done.
Well, and also Jarwin could not be up to speed and his body couldn't be right yet. It could be a situation where Jarwin is the guy the first 3 to 6 weeks. Yeah. And then once he's getting his feet under him, he takes over and surges in the second half. Honestly, the season he kind of broke out where everybody thought he was going to be amazing last year was the last month of the season anyway. Yeah. It was that when it was cold outside, it was that New York Giant game and
Yeah, so the infamous Jarwin Giants game. Yeah.
But if we have two capable tight ends, that's not a bad thing at all. With a team, the way that we think they want to run the ball and go back to a little bit more of that anyway, that's a very, very good thing for play action, for bootlegs, for just running period, everything. So
absolutely. Plus, with the wide receivers and running back that we already have, and those two guys could feast all day long. All day long in the middle of the field because you can't devote coverage to them that way. But one other thing I wanted to ask you, did you see the stuff that's coming out today about speaking of the Jaguars, possibly they might be shopping. It looks like they are going to be shopping CJ Henderson.
I did see that ever so slightly. He's pretty good. Why would they be wanting to move him? Contract coming up?
No. He's going into his second year, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. He was their draft pick in the first round last year, right?
Yeah. He was the guy that the majority of Cowboys draft media wanted the Cowboys to take in the first round. Then they ended up taking him with the 9th pick, so he wasn't available, and it worked out where CeeDee Lamb fell to us, which I'm certainly not complaining about that, but
right.
All indications are right. After I saw that, I was really excited because I was a big CJ Henderson fan.
He's not the Ohio State one. That's Okudah. He went to Detroit, right? Okay.
Jeff Okudah, yeah. No, he's from Florida, right? And he's a terrific player. So I started kind of digging around on the interwebs a bit, and from what I'm reading, there's a reporter in Jacksonville who I wish I could remember his name to give him credit, but apparently he was doing quite a bit of digging around on this. And from what it sounds like CJ Henderson never wanted to go to Jacksonville, doesn't like being at Jacksonville, doesn't feel like just is in no way, shape, or form interested in being there. Never did. The team, apparently there was some handshake agreements that the team was going to publicize him a certain way, and they didn't do it. And all these stupid little things that have kind of compounded into this situation where he's not happy. He wants out, and they're ready to go ahead and move on while the value is still high. And depending on what the value, I've heard anywhere from a 3rd round pick, which I think is nonsense. I don't think there's any way you could get him for that low, all the way up through a 1st round pick.
I would think 2nd would be the middle ground.
Yeah, I think if you could get him for a 2nd, or even like a 2nd and a 6th or something like that, a 2nd and then a late round pick, I think you do that all day long. But we're not going to be the only suitors for him. But I wanted to get your thoughts. I mean, he's definitely a quality player. He missed 8 games last year with injury, but there is a lot with the inexperience that we have. That it would definitely be interesting to see someone with that level of talent come onto this roster.
If they're going to be trading, if they're going to be getting rid of a pick to bring someone in, I would rather them do. Is it Samuel, right? Asante Samuel on the Patriots?
No, you're thinking Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah. When I'm going crazy today. It's definitely a Monday.
Well,
Yeah,
that one can't happen.
I know. I'm not saying that can or would, but I'd rather a veteran than is basically what I'm saying for what we need, because we're so young back there anyway. I don't know. We're so young. I'm not sure if that's the answer.
Well, here's the benefit, right? Sorry to cut you off, but there's one important thing that I didn't say, which is because he's still on his rookie contract, the money that you would be paying him is less than $3 million a year for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Right. Plus, then you have a team option for the 5th year, and that 5th year would be somewhere in the range between $9 and $11 million, depending on what accomplishments he accrues between now and then.
Well, I can already tell you he's going to hold out if he's wanting to trade from Jacksonville in year 1. I mean, so
he's
getting a bargain like that towards the end seems like it will be null, right?
Well, so we're nowhere near towards the end. Yes, at some point he is that guy who is definitely going to hold out. But even if he does, you got at least 2 years before that's a relevant.
No, I get that. Yeah.
So you still got 2 years of first-round talent cornerback at less than $3 million a year, and almost all of it is non-guaranteed. So worst case scenario is the only thing you're giving up really is the draft pick, because if it doesn't work, you can cut and run. There's all sorts of things you can do. You can trade him yourself. There's a bunch of different options. I think it just depends on how reasonable Jacksonville's going to be, what they want to do with it.
I'm watching Cam Newton throw the ball right now.
Ugh.
Yeah, it looks better than it doesn't look as lame duck as last season, but yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of burning, sinking ships.
That was rough. That was rough.
That was not fun.
Well, let's move on to the Mavs. You good with that?
I am. But before we do, we have to make one Rangers note. The Rangers made history.
I saw.
Yeah.
31-mile-an-hour strike.
The slowest pitch to ever be called a strike, not on a swing. 31 miles an hour.
Of course, it was the Rangers.
Yeah. In a blowout loss. So that's all I have to say on that.
So for everybody that's panicking right now about the Mavs, and there's a lot of them, trust me. My boss, huge Mavs fan, God bless him. He is losing his shit over, are the Mavs doing anything? Are the Mavs doing anything? And I had to remind him, they're actually doing quite a bit. They signed Tim Hardaway. They did this. They have 5 transactions. They've done 6. Luka, right before we started recording, signed a 5-year, $207 million contract. All the details are not out right now. If I was a betting man, I would say that it's really 4 years and that the 5th is an option for him, which still means he's here for 5 because there's still next season as well. So you can pencil him in for 5 full more seasons with the option for the 6th. Obviously, that's when a new deal will be worked upon. No player, if they have the option, unless they're declining, is really opting into these deals these days. It's really not. Even Chris Paul had 40. He could have made $45 million this year. Wanted the security of a 3, of a bigger bag, because he knows father times are creeping up in there. So, and also Luka, if you look at it this way, if he signs 4, or if it's really 4, that gives him 2 more contracts, as opposed you just get even more and more money to stack. Like Curry, for instance, signed his second $200 million contract just now. So that's cool.
Sorry, that just the fact second $200 million. It's just mind blowing. But go ahead.
It's
so much money. Good for them.
Dragic is somebody we've talked about on this. You and I have the same feeling. We both like him. We don't like trading for him with the foot injuries that he's had. I think that giving up young assets, I think, is a huge mistake. So it looks like we're not getting him unless he's bought out, which is fine. I don't care who you are, what you think. Dragic's a man who has not contributed in the playoffs either year. That Miami's been in the playoffs the last few years because of heel problems. So I can't, I can't sign off
Not in
on
good conscience.
trading any of our youth that we don't know what that youth is yet for him. I know what he can do for Luka. Man, just take a chill pill, everybody, because adding Dragic to your team does not make you a champion, right? You could always add him next year when he's free or costs very, very little if you want that mentorship to help push Luka to the next level.
Yeah.
Something you and I were talking about before we started the recording that I want to mention right now, for everyone who's upset about the Mavs not making moves, the Mavs were talking to Lowry. We were his second choice. We did try to get Bobby Portis here. Bobby Portis said no. There are 3 or 4 free agents that we tried to get here that are not. We have who we have. That's awesome. How do you feel about this Lauri Markkanen news? I'm not about it, but
I'm not about it unless it's for, I'd say if he'd be willing to come here for 12 or 13 million or less, I'd be willing to do that. But that's about, and as far as a sign and trade portion of it, I'd be willing to give up next to nothing to make that happen.
The problem with the sign and trade is, let's say he signs for 15. That's Cauley Stein and that's Powell, right?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, they're going to want to pick. I don't know why picks become part of the equation on sign and trades, but because I guess they have the right to match. So that's like hey, we'll just match it then. So damn, but if they give up a first for this guy, I've been really positive I'll lose my fucking shit, man. Yeah, I think he could be a good player, but damn, dude.
Here's the thing. The only other way I would be down with Lauri Markkanen and, giving up considerable assets to get Lauri Markkanen is if they have some sort of trade rape in the pipeline for KP that we don't know about. There's some magic suitor out there that the entire league doesn't know anything about it. This is obviously not realistic, right? But because they're incredibly similar players, very similar. Only Lauri Markkanen is worse on defense, and worse on offense. So
and he might even be more injury prone.
Yeah, it's a coin flip who's more injury prone. I'd be down. I'd be down to bring him on because then the load management of KP wouldn't be as big of a deal as long as we're not paying Lauri Markkanen crazy money. But short of that,
maybe we can close them on doing a pick swap. I mean, they'll be pretty close. Maybe that'll get it done. Because Chicago should be decent next season.
Yeah.
Right. So we will be also. So maybe. Okay, we'll just swip our ones. So maybe they feel we'll fall off. I don't know.
Yeah, you get to choose who with the higher of our first round, you can do the optional pick swap.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not about the draft compensation. Like I said, I don't dislike the idea of getting Lauri Markkanen here because I would say arguably as an offensive player, he's definitely a plus over Dwight Powell.
Oh, yeah.
One could argue he's a better offensive player all around than Kleba. Kleba has a very niche skill set, right?
Yeah. I would say he's a better offensive player than Kleba, but once you factor in total game, it's not even
right.
I would even if it was a straight up Kleba for Lauri Markkanen, I wouldn't do that.
No,
I wouldn't do it.
It just doesn't. We know what and you know what though. Maybe I would. I don't know what the offense is going to be like with Kidd.
Very true.
I know what the offense was like with Rick. So that version of Kleba is not what he is, and we need that in this offense. But once again, we don't know. One of the biggest issues the Mavs had with Luka and Rick was that Luka became such a facilitator that offense couldn't run when he's on there because no one could dish the ball like he could. So everybody's just standing around, right? Yeah. That's the analytical issue to surrounding so many shooters around. It's a brilliant idea, but when you're guys that are just used to let this guy work his magic and he's going to find me open, I'm going to take my shot. Like Kleba can't create his own shot to save his life, right? No, he's a catch and shoot 3-point guy, and he can play some okay defense, and he can rebound a little bit.
Yep.
And maybe on this offense, that's not what we need. So maybe my opinion will be different once I know. I have no clue what this offense is going to look like. None of us do.
Well, let's also here's the big thing, and it ties in directly to what you're saying right now, which is that Lauri Markkanen is a fine player, right?
Sure.
Take all the compensation, trades, whatever. If you were to just ask me, would you like Lauri Markkanen on your team? My answer would be yes. But Lauri Markkanen doesn't solve the primary problem that this team needed to and still needs to solve in this offseason, which is a secondary creator so that Luka isn't having to play 72 minutes a night, and create every bit of offense for this team.
Well, to play devil's advocate here, are we sure that Brunson and Tyrell Terry aren't those guys?
No, we're not sure, but
We're assuming like that, and this isn't you. That's why I'm glad you said that. This is the narrative of Twitter. This is the narrative of the radio. This is the narrative of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's that they failed because they didn't do that. Well, Brunson's going into year 4,
mm-hmm.
right? He's now learned a lot of times what happens with these players is they go in the playoffs and they get their teeth kicked in, and what happens?
They get better.
You realize, like, damn, man, I need to get better at this. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Maybe we've seen the cap of Jalen Brunson. Maybe we haven't. And then Tyrell Terry, I have no clue. I don't know what to expect from that kid whatsoever, honestly.
No, but here's the thing, right? Neither at this point right now, neither does Jason Kidd. Right?
Sure.
He has a better idea of what to expect than we do, but not much. We have no idea. Not just we also don't know how much he doesn't know how much better any of the secondary creators on our team are going to be. And the primary goal that not just we thought, but even they, Mark Cuban, Jason Kidd, multiple people from the organization, high up in the organization, said their primary goal this offseason was to find a secondary creator and ball handler. And right now, based on what they have established as their primary goal, they have yet to achieve that. I'm not saying they failed. I'm saying they haven't succeeded.
Unless somebody steps up to, right.
Yeah, but the problem there is if we're going to wait until the regular season starts to find out if one of those can do it, then I don't know. I mean, it's not too late because you still got in-season trades and things like that. But it seems like you're ignoring or wasting potential opportunities to improve.
Yeah, no, and I get that. I think the reason why I'm kind of just butthurt over the whole situation is that I have belief that I think the skill set that Tyrell Terry has can be good in the NBA. It could be like a Trae Young light, possibly. And I kind of want to see it. And I know that it's playing with fire because, damn it, if it's not there, you're starting behind the 8 ball in a very competitive West that 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 games is a very big deal if you start behind.
Yeah.
But I'm to the point where I see, these two guys. I see Dragic and I see Markkanen, and I'm grouping them in the same situation. Is I'm seeing two guys that right now are not obtainable via a trade that I view is fair. Yeah, you have two guys that don't want to be where they're at. Clearly, they've now both said it loudly as well. And the fact that we would have to give up a young asset that we don't know anything about, or a draft compensation to get a guy that doesn't want to be there, that they are going to have to move on from, that just has soured me so much where I'd rather just see what I have if these guys can step up and do that. Because I do think that, man, what if Dragic plays a season and has to retire because of foot issues? What if Lauri is who we think he is, which is just injury prone, and you give up somebody who can be very, very good and could have been what we think we needed and we're searching for? It's there. There's no guarantee that's the case.
No,
but that's where I'm soured, because both guys, it's the same narrative, man. And it's dumb. Like, you have all the people on the radio saying Cuban's cheap, he cares more cryptocurrency, whatever else, who are going batty about all this nonsense. Well, you're going to have a batty motherfucker right here if we're trading assets for either one of those guys. Just I don't view Powell and Willie Cauley-Stein as an asset.
No, I
So
mean,
I'm fine with that. I'm not even upset if it's Kleba, and I like Kleba a lot because I get the fact that it's a means to an end. This is the last year of his contract. You don't want to lose him for nothing. You're securing something in here, so I can play that game with you as well. But if you're talking about someone we haven't seen yet that could be something, that's my and maybe it's a terrible thing because the Mavs did that with Bobois, right? The Rangers did it with freaking Profar,
yeah.
right? You sit on this youth forever and ever, and then you don't get the value that you could have got because you were wondering what it was. But I just don't think Dragic or Marketing are value. So I think it's a wash either way.
See, I'm with you on everything you've said there. I don't, but the only difference is, well, let me back up. I am with you 100% on Markin and Dragic. Specifically Dragic. Like, I want him to come here because I think it'd be good for Luka.
Sure.
But, I mean, I am right there with you as far as the foot injuries, the age, that whatever. If it happens, as long as we don't, end up whoring ourselves on the street to pay for it, fine. Don't give up young assets. Don't give up draft capital. Markkanen, I'm a little more intrigued just because 7-footers who can shoot threes are rare, right?
Sure.
So maybe he comes here and has a career year. We say that about everybody. Well, he's never played with a point guard like Luka, and that's true. But at some point, we have to start thinking about the league differently than everybody hasn't played with Luka, so maybe they'll have a career year.
Right.
But I am not as sold on the young guys, specifically Terry, because one thing, it's not that I'm not sold on him, it's that I'm not confident yet that the new administration feels about them the way that the old administration did to draft them in the first place, right?
Well, and to chime in, not to cut you off there,
No, go ahead.
I get that. That's why it's kind of like the Jets situation right now, right? There's a wide receiver, Mims, who was drafted last year very highly, second round, I think.
Yep.
And they're probably going to trade him, cut him, something, six string him. It's not good, right? But it's new regime, new GM, everything else. So I understand. The issue with basketball, though, is that somebody wants a young asset on some team, right? And I think that there are better trades to be had down the line, and I'd rather just chill and see. Because yeah, if some other team wants him, but they're willing to give us player A, I just don't, man. I just that's just my feeling on the situation is I can't I'm trying to envision a lineup right now that has Tim Hardaway, Luka, Marketing, KP, and Maxi Kleba in it, and
it wouldn't be Maxi at that point. It'd be Dodo, but yeah.
It's I don't know, man.
That's not tenable. It's not. It may be one of the strongest offensive lineups in the league. That may be the worst defensive lineup in the league, or one of. It'd be Swiss cheese, just holes all day long. You're asking at that point, you're asking a whole lot of Luka on the defensive end, and you're asking a whole lot out of Dodo, or Maxi, whoever you want to put at the the big wing spot. But yeah, that's rough. That's rough. It doesn't work. No, Markkanen wouldn't be, if he came here, he wouldn't be a starter. He would be on the bench. He would be, probably your sixth or seventh man, not your actual sixth man, but probably the seventh guy in your rotation who's going to come in, and he would spell KP. He would play alongside a rolling big, that kind of thing. Because if you look at like last year, he didn't have a great year, but his efficiency numbers went way, way up. And it's
sure I had him on fantasy basketball.
And so
I'm aware.
He spent quite a bit more time playing the 5 than he did before. And so that becomes a situation where if that's the case, how you can't really play him with KP, because KP, you kind of need to play him at the 5 too. Unless KP is healthy offseason is going to let him get back to having some of the defense, the athleticism that he had before, where he can actually guard some of the fours that are in the Western Conference, then you can't afford to not have him at the 5.
Right.
So
we'll see. These are the thoughts. It's funny because I think so reversely than the typical keyboard tough guys, if that makes sense. You know, like
yeah.
I just, like I said, I just want the Mavs to be good. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not too much. Not too much to ask.
My only concern with everything you're saying is it just the Roddy Beaubois Profar situation has me gun shy about holding on to talent that we really truly know very little about.
Sure.
And we don't really know if anyone. I mean, yes, like you said, young talent is young talent, and somebody will want that in the NBA. But we don't really
like
know.
If Houston called me right now, and I'm Mark Cuban or Nico, and said, "Hey, we like Kevin Porter Jr., but we need this player, this player, this player. We will give him to you for Tyrell Terry, Jalen Brunson, and Dwight Powell. What do you think?" I say yes. And I do that deal because I think Kevin Porter Jr. is crazy. He might be a terrible human being. I think he's grown and become better, but he is a baller. I'm okay with that. Yeah. Because that for what I feel is you're giving up a lot, but I think you're giving up a guy who could be a potential like borderline all-star type player.
Sure.
If I'm the Mavs, call me crazy. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get Schroeder here. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the guy that I'm interested in is Dennis Schroeder. That's where I'm trying to work a shine. That's a guy where if you're talking to the Lakers doing a sign and trade and they want youth, that's the guy I'm doing something for.
I'm with you, but they've already said they're not in on it.
I know. No, I'm aware. I'm just saying that's me. That's the kind of guy I think they need. Another like just scoring alpha wing. You talk about, yeah, he's not a point guard, but you talk about needing someone who can create their own shot when Luka's resting for valuable minutes. That's why we got Bullock was for that profile. He fits it even better.
Yeah. Again, he's not a point guard, but he can 100% create his own shot. He can break the defense down. He's not going to average a ton of assists, but he can distribute a little bit. If you're not asking him to run the offense for a huge number of, you can run the offense through him for 8 to 12 minutes a night if you absolutely need to and be okay, which is exactly what we're really looking for. I mean, literally exactly what we're looking for. If he played, his defense is okay. If he played a little bit better defense, it'd be even better. But yeah.
He's got some maturity issues. Apparently, is the problem. But man, young players, they.
Yeah, and it'd be on a short-term deal because he turned down, was it 22 a year? Is that right?
No, he said that's what he thought he was worth, and they said no. Is what
did he turn down? He turned down because they offered him like, what was it, 3 for 70?
I don't know the specifics of what was offered.
Because I can't remember what it was, but it was. He said that he wanted something like 25.
It was like 80 million or something for 3 years, or 90 or 100. It was a lot.
But it's very similar to what happened to Nerlens Noel here, where he got offered a pretty nice looking contract, turned it down, and then free agency wasteland fell right in his lap. So
it's true.
We'll see.
True.
We'll see. It'll be interesting.
We'll see, man. That's my Mavs thoughts. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We'll probably have we'll have the official breakdown probably next week, whether it's 4 or 5 years for Luka. It's not Mark's not. I keep looking at my phone while we're recording, trying to see if the Shams or whoever, but they haven't said anything about it yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I love more Cowboys to talk about as well. So as always, we thank the listeners for chiming in. We like talking sports. So this is a fun hour of our life once a week to do so that our wives don't go batty with us talking to them about these things. So this is Zach signing off for the Goal Line Fade. Peace.